Today we're gonna make incredible cinnamon rolls with maple and pecan. Stick around for the recipe, you don't wanna miss this. I think you'll be amazed. I know I was after making this a couple times at how easy this dough actually is. First and foremost, just get all your ingredients out. Every time I make a recipe, whether it's for the first time or for the millionth, I measure each ingredient out, put them in front of me so I see everything. I know what I'm gonna need when, and it's organization. It is essential in baking. So the first thing you do is you activate your yeast. We're using active dry yeast, not the instant bread machine yeast. We're using 1 packet or 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. We have it in 1/4 cup of lukewarm water with a pinch of granulated sugar, and we just swirl it to mix it together. So first off, the water needs to be lukewarm, not too hot, otherwise it'll kill the yeast, but if it's not warm enough, the yeast won't activate. And we need to activate it so that it rises this dough properly. The sugar helps feed it. It's pretty much just gonna speed up the process. And you know it's active when it smells like fermentation or bread, basically. It's all nice and foamy, and you can actually hear it fizzing. Like, that's the sound of good active yeast. The other lovely thing is that the stand mixer does all the work for us here. So all we do is pretty much pour everything in it. We're gonna start off with 3/4 cup of whole milk that I warmed in the microwave just till it was warm to the touch. You don't need to make it hot. We also have 1 large egg that is at room temperature. We're using granulated sugar, 1/4 cup of that. We're also using maple syrup. These are maple pecan rolls. I want the dough itself to be flavored just so it's really intense and you really get the maple in the end. So 1/4 cup of maple syrup in there, as well as 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter that we melted and allowed to cool to room temperature. We're also going to pour in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm gonna whisk these together just until they're nicely combined. And then we're gonna go in with our activated yeast. You can see it got all nice and foamy there. That's gonna go right in with the rest of the ingredients. We're just gonna mix this one more time. And then on goes the dough hook attachment. Now when it comes to the flour, I have 3.5 cups total. I'm gonna add about half of it. And I'm gonna turn my mixer on a low speed. And I'm gonna let that flour mix in initially because we're gonna be adding salt. Salt will kill yeast if it comes in direct contact with it. So we wanna add a little bit of flour just to get everything nice and mixed, and then we'll go in with the salt. I have 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Again, flavoring the dough so that it's really delicious. And then at this point, I'm gonna go in with the rest of the all-purpose flour. It's 3.5 cups total. So now that all of our flour's in, we're gonna mix this on a low speed just until the dough comes together. And once the dough comes together, we turn the speed up to medium, and we're gonna let this knead in the mixer for about 5 minutes. Okay, so you'll know that this is a really nice dough. It should have some elasticity to it. That's how you know it's done. I'm just going to lightly flour my surface here. Now, a dough or bench scraper is really helpful here just because it is slightly sticky, just to get it out of the bowl. Obviously, if you don't have one, it's not the end of the world. But all we need to do is pretty much knead this just a couple times. It's so soft. But pretty much to make a nice tight ball of dough, I collect it into a ball kind of by scooping the sides underneath itself. And then I'll cut my hands here and just kind of pull in towards myself, twist. That's gonna help seal the bottom of it. And then I'll just pick it up. If there's any seams or anything, I'll pretty much just grab the sides of the dough like this, use my fingers to pull it in towards the center and keep rotating as I do this. And there we go. That is beautiful. You need a large bowl. You wanna grease it with cooking spray, and we're going to put this in the bowl. You wanna cover it with plastic wrap just so it doesn't dry out, and then cover it with a kitchen towel. And you wanna place this in a warm area of the kitchen. I put mine in the microwave. You wanna let it rise until it's doubled in volume, which depending on the yeast and a lot of other elements can take between 1 to 2 hours. Moment of truth. Oh my goodness. I love seeing dough rise. I'm weird, I know. So now it's time to have fun. First thing you want to do is punch the dough down, get the air out. And then you will definitely want to flour your surface. Doesn't need to be a lot, just a little bit so the dough doesn't stick to it. And then you just turn your dough out onto the board. Now, just in the beginning here, I'm gonna kind of press it into a rectangular shape just so that rolling it out is a little bit easier. And then I'm also going to flip it over and just reflour the surface. And then you just roll it out into a rectangle. I'm just rolling this out until the dough is 1/4 inch thick. This looks wonderful. And then just because I am very OCD, I'm just gonna trim off these rounded edges. We're not throwing this out. We can make little mismatched cinnamon rolls with this, so keep that. We have this gorgeous filling here. It was very easy to make. It's just softened butter with sugar, maple syrup, and a few tablespoons of cinnamon that we just cream until nice, light, and fluffy. And then I find an offset spatula is the easiest thing to use. We're gonna just spread it all around. So I have some roughly chopped pecans, about 2 cups worth, that I'm gonna spread all over the surface. If you don't like pecans, you can absolutely leave them out. We're just gonna take the long end here and we're gonna start rolling the dough up. You wanna keep it nice and tight. So just kind of press it down every time you roll it. So roll it again, keep it nice and tight. Put the seam side down while we cut these up. So again, not necessary, but I'm OCD, so I like to make this neat. I'm just gonna lightly trim off these edges here, and look at that. That looks incredible. And then basically what I like to do is I like to mark it in half, and then in half again, and then each section into thirds. And that's how you get 12 even sized rolls. These go in a greased 9 by 13 inch dish. You want to cover these with plastic, a towel, and then let them proof, which means rise again until doubled and puffy for about 40 minutes to an hour. I mean, what else could you possibly say? The smell alone is sublime. And we all know there is nothing like a warm cinnamon roll. I just put a little drizzle of maple syrup over the top. These don't have a glaze, they don't need one. They baked for 30 minutes in a 350 Fahrenheit oven until the internal temperature was 190 degrees Fahrenheit. Just let them cool for about 10 minutes and then cut and enjoy. They're just amazing. That's pretty much all I can say. The full written recipe is in the description, as well as the link to my new cookbook. This is cookbook number 2 for me. Time for Dessert has 40 incredible dessert recipes for any skill set, full of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years as a dessert business owner. You can pre-order with the link in the description. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.